Hello and welcome back to 1874. It's time for a match preview show in association with Match Bingo, hosted by myself, Dan Bardell, and joined by Sky Sports News' David Reid. If you want to download the Match Bingo app, then head to 1874.io/Match Bingo, and you'll be able to get some bingo cards ahead of Aston Villa against Fulham this weekend. A chance to win between £25 and £250, depending on what your bingo card looks like. I keep coming really, really close, but just not quite getting over the line for that £250. But I am hopeful that this weekend it'll happen against Fulham, and I'll flash the QR code up at various points so that if you are watching via YouTube, you can use your phone to get what you need from Match Bingo. But do find out a little bit more about them in the description, whether you're listening or whether you are watching. Right then, as I said, joined by David Reid to preview Aston Villa against Fulham, lunchtime kickoff for those not going, and in the UK it is on TNT Sports, of course. Dave, how are you on this Thursday?
Sweaty. It's warm out there, guys. You can probably hear sirens in the background. I've got every window and door open in the place.
I've had to shut my window, which is really unfortunate given the circumstances. I am now in the hottest room in the UK. I dread to think what the temperature is in my little office here. But yeah, because I live on a new build, it's too noisy. I can't have the window open and do a podcast at the same time. So I've had to shut the windows, Dave. And I've got to be honest, I'm already regretting the decision of doing a podcast because I'm absolutely boiling. How is Dave Reid feeling ahead of Aston Villa against Fulham?
Look, yeah, I mean, after last week, I feel like I'm maybe still a bit flat after last week.
It's understandable.
I mean, Villa have got to get 3 points, haven't they? They've got to get 3 points against Fulham to give themselves an opportunity. Might well see a different team. Kind of expecting a different team, really, I think, this week. And then, yeah, it's almost like you as we've mentioned before, you've got to win every single game that's available now and kind of hope for the best, really. Yeah,
Lee Haynes on thumbnail duty is obviously expecting a different team because he's decided, without asking me, to put Leon Bailey.
I did see that
on the cover. That was a pure Lee Haynes decision. He usually asks me who I would like, but today he's took the executive decision to plump for Leon Bailey after his cameo at Wembley. Lee Haynes obviously impressed. Does Dave Reid think that he might come in and offer Villa some added width down that right hand side?
I was going to ask you what you thought of Leon Bailey's cameo. I thought he was relatively positive. Yeah, relatively positive. Looked like he wanted to take people on, looked like he wanted to make something happen. Final ball, final pass maybe wasn't quite there, but he hasn't had a lot of football, so can't really blame him for that. But he kind of showed that little bit of width and energy that Villa were probably missing throughout the whole 90 minutes, really.
Yeah, lots of people in the chat. Afternoon to Flange0027. Dean Averis. AVFC Stato says evening. AVFC Stato must go to bed early because he's classing 4 p.m. as being evening. Hello to Gig Sharma and hello to Gaming and Stuff as well. And of course, Chris Swan, squad number 27, is in there as always. I guess we could continue the team theme. That rhymes. We all expected Tyrone Mings to line up at Wembley. He did not. Do we expect Tyrone Mings to line up this weekend?
Yes.
You do? I mean, that says to me that he's probably going to be on the substitutes bench there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was expecting Tyrone Mings to line up at Wembley. Didn't happen. I mean, I saw a lot of the kind of discourse after the game was people throwing out the kind of how many games that Villa have won when Tyrone Mings has started.
Haven't lost a game this season, I believe.
Is that right? Is that
what FC Status to be believed on social media? I believe we haven't lost a game with him starting this season. He's in here, so I'll get him to post that stat now in the live chat, and we'll put it up on the screen. But I don't believe we've lost a game that Tyrone Mings has started this season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly read massively into that, and kind of use it as a reason why he should be starting games. But I do think he will start this game. But I thought he was going to start last weekend. So what do I know?
You could say don't use it as a reason. But if you think back to the tail end of the 23-24? Or 22-23 season, when Villa qualified for the Europa Conference League, they went on an exceptional run towards the back end of that season in terms of clean sheets and results as well. So actually, the sample size for Tyrone Mings is very large if you were to go back that far.
Yeah, a lot's happened since then, though, hasn't it, for Tyrone? He had the big injury, the comeback. I think he's looked pretty good, pretty solid following the injury than the comeback. I haven't got a list in front of me of the teams that he started against. So I'd probably have to gauge it against the level of opposition that he started against and whether that has made a difference to his record, potentially.
The only game I can think of that it would be is maybe Cardiff and Preston, the only two. I can't remember if he started against Cardiff. He definitely played against Preston. But, other than that, you're talking Champions League and Premier League opposition because we had a couple of Premier League teams in the FA Cup.
Yeah, and look, I'm not kind of trying to downplay him at all. As I've said last week and many weeks, that he's Villa's best box defender. I think they could have done with him on the pitch last week, and I think they're going to need him against Fulham as well. They like to play with a kind of target man and a focal point in their attack, and I think it'd be worthy of him starting this game because I think he's, again, Villa's most aggressive central defender.
Yep, AVFC Stato's come up trumps for us. Have won the last 8 games that Tyrone Mings has started, unbeaten in the last 11 and only lost 1 in the last 18. Caveat that as well with not lost in the Premier League this season in games that Tyrone Mings has started. So, that is a pretty large sample size, Dave.
Yeah, but I think he's been... I don't think he's been eased back in, I think is what I'm trying to say. He's been eased back in. He hasn't been chucked in and he's played every single week. I think the manager has picked and chosen the games that he wants to play Tyrone Mings for now. And I think that's worked for Mings. Not having to play, I think, we had a ridiculous number of games in 2 weeks. So I think it's helped that he's not played every game for him and his recovery post games. So... yeah, I mean, I think Tyrone Mings is brilliant, and I think he's great. So for me, he starts this game. Not particularly that. Although most of the players, I think, at Wembley, on reflection, they will say that it was a poor performance. I just think for this particular game, Tyrone Mings is the better fit.
Yeah, AMS says in the chat, we look more controlled and organised when Mings plays. It's leadership at the back, not just his defensive capabilities. I'd agree with that. Look, we may well have lost on Saturday with Tyrone Mings in the lineup against Crystal Palace, but I think we would have I don't think we'd have shipped some of the goals that we conceded. It would have obviously been a completely different game, but I just think he makes the whole team more aggressive. And, we're probably repeating ourselves here because we've spoke about it on this channel a lot over the last week, what we think Tyrone Mings adds in terms of value. But I'm with you. I think he'll start this game. Should we go through and try and guess the 11, or maybe do an 11 that we would pick? It's probably best to try and guess the 11. Obviously, Emery hasn't done his press conference at this time, but I think we can probably agree that there will be some changes for this one. So I think we'll all agree on the goalkeeper, Emi Martinez. I guess, 4 games left. The schedule's eased up a little bit now. You're going to see what maybe Emery thinks his best team is there or thereabouts at this point. So, Cash has been rotated out and subbed off at various points, but I think with the schedule lessening now, you'll see Cash for these 4 games. So we're saying Cash, Konsa, Mings and Maatsen. That's what I'd expect to see.
I would expect to see that. Yeah, absolutely. I think I wouldn't be totally shocked if Garcia starts. Just because I think it's a bit of a pick 'em really between Garcia and Cash for this game. Cash has played. They've kind of tried to manage his minutes as well over the last couple of months. So whether they decide to kind of take him out the firing line a little bit, and they can use him from the bench potentially as well. I think Garcia, on the whole, has largely been positive when he's played. So it might be a kind of time where Emery says, okay, well, let's give you another go from the start, and we can potentially use Matty Cash from the bench if required.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to the Newcastle team and what team he picked there. I think that would be the same back 5 that played against Newcastle, so that would make sense. Probably still Tielemans and Kamara, despite the fact they probably both put in their worst performances in a Villa shirt last weekend, which was unfortunate timing. Yeah,
it was very unfortunate timing.
Tielemans hasn't had a rest all season, so he's not going to start resting.
No, he's going to play. I just think last week, I don't think many of them were helped by the way Villa set up, and obviously Crystal Palace put in a brilliant performance. Like, you got to give credit for them. I don't feel like the game last week is a reason to drop Youri Tielemans.
No,
maybe Kamara comes out the side as again a kind of let's try and manage his minutes and we can use him from the bench. Onana, I think, is again, when he's played, has largely been positive. Maybe it's an opportunity for him to come in and play again alongside Tielemans. So that would be my only thought on that. What do I expect to see? Yeah, maybe I'd plump for Onana and Tielemans and maybe give Kamara a slight rest.
I think it'll be Kamara and Tielemans. Is my inkling. Stephen Neto is saying here, need a strong lineup with pace. I mean, most of Villa's attacking options have got pace and are blessed with speed. In fairness, we've kind of just talked about Leon Bailey a little bit. I think for this game, you need a Marlon or a Bailey down the right-hand side. I wouldn't want to see Rodgers there again. I'd rather he was somewhere else in the team in one of the other two kind of positions off the striker.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we'll see one, but I wouldn't be totally surprised if we see both Marlon and Bailey from the start.
Dave, that's too spicy.
Too spicy?
It's too spicy even for you.
Maybe Marlon as the kind of second striker. I'm not sure. I'm not sure we see. Maybe we do. I would maybe like us to switch away from the 4-2-3-1 and go back to
again
that
too hot, Dave.
And go back to that 4-4-2 or 4-2-2-2. No, I'd like to see us just switch things up a little bit and just give the players a bit of a refresh.
Save your freezing cold takes for the end of the show.
Okay,
Dave.
all right.
Don't do them now.
Essentially, if Anthony Robinson's fit, I think there's a question mark over his fitness. He's got pace to burn, so you kind of want someone to try and test him out a little bit and try and pin him a little bit, or you could well try and do what Villa have done in the last few weeks and play Rodgers on the right hand side and try and drag Robinson out of position by drifting in and then get Matty Cash on the overlap. But given what's happened in the last few weeks, do you want to persist with that? I think the overwhelming sense from the comments and from what I see from other Villa fans, and me personally, I'm not totally convinced that Morgan Rodgers works on the right hand side. So given the positive impact that Leon Bailey had, I would probably plump for him. It's just every time we pick a team, I feel like I'm leaving Marlon out, and I feel for the guy. I just feel for the guy because he's been brought in. He was left out of the Champions League squad. Villa spent good money on him. I know essentially it was almost a kind of selling Philogene and bringing him in, and there wasn't a great deal of extra cost on top of that, if any. It was pretty much it felt like a one in, one out job. I just feel for the guy because again, he's another one who when he's played has impacted the team positively on the whole, and it just feels like every week you pick a team, he's not in it, and I just feel for him. So I kind of want to get him in the team somewhere, but maybe I'm just being a bit too kind of sentimental on that front. And Villa have got to prioritise the result.
I think Marlon, I think Bailey will be introed from the bench again. They'll look at it as he had a good impact coming fresh off the bench last week and running at tired legs has obviously been a duration of the game played. So I'm going to plump for Marlon. And then, because part of me thinks home games against teams like Fulham is Asensio would be picked for that. But then I think you've got to get Rodgers in somewhere. And I can't see him not playing McGinn. So I think you've got Rodgers and McGinn. But then I always think, Ramsey never goes too many games without starting. It's difficult every week. But I think we can. I don't think, again, like Tielemans, he's not going to rest Rodgers at this point. So then I guess it will be Rodgers and then either Asensio, McGinn, or Ramsey.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of want to see Asensio. I kind of want to see Rodgers in that 10 position again, or the second striker position again. That's why I'm feeling like I want us to go back to that 4-4-2 again, because I just felt like that was the best that we saw Morgan Rodgers in that second striker role, and Villa haven't really played with that second striker role for kind of half the season now, since January really, or since December. I just feel like that's where you've seen the best of Rodgers, either in that position or maybe earlier in the season cutting in from the left hand side. But yeah, if I'm kind of, again, if I'm feeling like I want to see the best of Rodgers, I play him as the second striker. But maybe Asensio will be given another opportunity, given how poor everyone was last week. Maybe this is the game for him. And then it'll be Rodgers from the left-hand side this time.
I mean, the good news is, this is a great stat from AVFC stats. I need to bring that show back. I've been so rubbish. I am hopeless. I'm going to bring that show back, Dale. Just I know you're watching because you're contributing to the chat. Come up with a great stat here. Marlon scores 3 goals in 118 minutes in the Premier League in April. That's pretty lively, isn't it? 3 goals in 118 minutes.
Yeah, as I say, he's looked good whenever he's come on. He's looked like he's going to
good starting against Forest as well when he scored.
Yeah, he looks like he's ready to impact the game, take people on and run in behind and stretch defenders and not necessarily be the one getting on the ball, making something happen. But he's the one that the opposition are kind of looking over the shoulder, wondering where he is because he's making a lot of off-ball runs. So, yeah, I like him. I just feel for him because he's not played enough, really. Villa has sold the project to him. When you buy a player, even though, I've seen someone in the comments just saying I wasn't really getting a game at Dortmund. But when you sign a player, you give them the sell, or you give them the project. You say, this is how you're going to be a part of our plans going forward. And Villa gave him the sell. And I just feel like maybe it's... And I know Emery has kind of said that he's got sympathy for him because it's just the way the cookies crumble for him in the second half of the season. I just feel like he deserves a little bit more.
Yeah, he's going to go on my shirt next season. I'm going to take a gamble. Marlon and Matson next season are going to be big players for Villa. They're kind of going to be next season's Tillemans, if that makes sense, in my opinion. And then I guess the great news for us, Dave, is that we don't have to make ourselves look idiots by trying to pick a number 9 because Marcus Rashford is not going to be playing. So we can just agree that Ollie Watkins is going to play as the number 9. And
I'd have still started them both last week.
I told you that would not happen.
Only because of injury, though.
I know, but I told you it wouldn't happen. Technically, I was correct because it didn't happen. And it wouldn't have happened if Rashford had been fit. There's absolutely no way that would have happened. Though.
Wow.
But
maybe my setup was right for last week.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, it couldn't have been much worse than the setup we came out with in the end because that certainly didn't work. I think we can all agree. Watkins, chance, going to play 90 minutes. You would think, chance to break this record.
Yeah, what a moment!
Could be a bad weekend for Gabriel Balogun.
Yeah, what a moment for him. I so hope he does it. He will do it eventually.
He might only have 4 games, Dave, if rumours are to be believed.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I saw that piece by Martin Samuel as well. I just wasn't...
to be honest, I have not seen that piece.
It was an odd column around Rashford and Watkins and how Watkins needs to feel loved again and, all that stuff. I'm not so in agreement with that. Yeah, I mean, I hope he does it. He deserves it. I know you kind of love Benteke as Villa's greatest Premier League striker, but Watkins is definitely in the conversation.
I think Dwight York's probably edges ahead of Benteke, but yeah, both of them I do enjoy both.
Yeah, but I mean, look, what a player, what a brilliant player he's been, what a brilliant team player he's been as well, and has been kind of there in times where Villa have struggled to stay in the top division, and he's now enjoying the kind of fruits of that, where he's been a key player for England in the last year, and he's been a key player for Aston Villa, getting to the Champions League, playing in the Champions League. I know he wanted to play more against PSG, but yeah, I hope he does it because he fully deserves it, and it'd be a great moment for him when he does it, and I'm sure he'll get the reception and the love that he deserves.
Yeah, be happy in the chat's right to call out the Forest game against Brentford this evening that hasn't taken place when we're recording. That could change the landscape of our game, couldn't it? With us being the early kickoff as well, we could, if Forest don't get a result tonight, we could very well find ourselves in the top 5 before everyone else plays at the weekend, which is obviously a nice position to be in. Man City playing Wolves on Friday. I think we can probably, as good as Wolves have been recently, I think we can all agree that probably Man City are on a bit of a crest of a wave at the moment, and that they'll probably win that football match. It is Forest, really, that Villa are looking at the moment. More good news, Dave, is that the game's taking place at Fortress Villa Park. Villa's home record this season in the Premier League and in general has been absolutely exceptional. Still not lost a game in the Premier League since the first Premier League home game of the season. So, Fulham are coming here knowing it's going to be really, really tough for them. And if we can get the atmosphere up early, get an early goal. So, it sounds stupid to say, but so many Villa games I think are dictated by if we score first and if we score early. And if we do, I always feel comfortable that we're going to go on and win the game because I think we always ride on a crest of a wave when we get that early goal. But the good news is that a home game next after a difficult week. There's not many teams in the Premier League that are better at home than Villa.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be interesting. I think Fulham are probably going to have the same conversation pre-game as well. They'll be thinking, if I'm the Fulham manager, I'm saying we don't know what crowd's going to turn up here. We could keep them quiet for the first 15, 20 minutes. We could get an early goal and things could turn against the Villa players. That's what I'd be saying to this Fulham team. They've got the quality. It's a funny one because I felt like, Fulham were well in the hunt for Europe at one point, and then they started losing. They fell away a bit.
A little.
And then you look at the table now, and they're still kind of there. They're still there and picking up results. So at one point, I thought they're out of it, and actually they're still well in the hunt. So they've got plenty to go for. They've got some really talented players. I think they've got a solid Premier League manager there as well. And I think they'll be coming to Villa Park thinking that they can get a result. And I think it'd be interesting to see the kind of atmosphere, because in previous weeks we've had so many big games. There's been a lot of kind of calls to action from the club, to supporters getting behind the fans. Probably not going to see that this weekend. So it's kind of like, well, how is it going to feel when you get to Villa Park this weekend, particularly if things don't start well? So I think it's really important actually that the fans continue to get behind that group of players. I think obviously last week was disappointing, but I think it's good to feel disappointed after a semi-final loss. I feel like Villa got to the semi-final of a European competition last season, and I think on the whole, a lot of Villa fans were like, okay, great, well done. We did brilliantly to get to a semi-final of a European competition, as long as we, obviously we wanted to go on and win it. But I think it was great to get there. You get to a semi-final of another competition this season and you're disappointed then not to go on and win something. So that's how I think the mindset has changed. I think the team has grown as well. And I think the team needs that space and time to continue to grow. As I said, pre-Crystal Palace, this team's not at the end of its cycle. This team is still kind of at the starting end of the cycle that they're on. So I think there's still time and space for that side to get better. Next season, I think maybe there will be a little bit more pressure to go and win something. I think these final few games of the season might well dictate how the summer goes for Aston Villa. So I think it's really important that the crowd continue to get behind them, even if things don't start well. Because, look, if Villa are in the Conference League or the Europa League next season, it changes everything in terms of transfer budget. And actually the kind of trajectory that Villa have taken over the last few years has been upwards continually. It might just plateau if Villa end up in the Conference League.
I mean, yeah, worth saying that Jacob and myself did a show yesterday looking at the various permutations and what it means for Villa if they don't qualify for the Champions League, and how the summer might look if they were in the Europa League and the Europa Conference League. So do go back and check that show out if you haven't done so already. Another brilliant stat from AVFC Stato: Villa have only lost one Premier League home game in 416 days. I mean, I remember a time we couldn't buy a win at home. So to read things like that, despite us all being disappointed, stats like that do tell you that Villa are the real deal and a serious club now. It was just a really desperately bad week last week. Dave, I'm just looking at Fulham's team against Southampton, and bear in mind they did kind of not limp past Southampton, but he just snuck past in the end after going 1-0 down. So it was Leno in goal, Tete, Joachim Anderson, Calvin Bassey, Ryan Sessegnon played at left back instead of Anthony Robinson, and of course ended up scoring. Pereira, Berger and Iwobi was the midfield three, and then Harry Wilson, Jimenez and Willian, the front three. I mean, Willian looks really good. Again, so he's come back to Fulham and he's still, even at his age,
how old is he still? He's
still
going? Unbelievable.
I haven't got a clue, but he must be 35, 36. At this point, William. Smith, 36, yeah. Smith Rowe came on and scored off the bench, and Adama Traore came off the bench and got a late assist for Ryan Sessegnon. I've got a feeling that ex-Villa man Adama Traore might start this one, because I think that part of Fulham's game plan will be transition. And he actually, I think, I haven't got any stats in front of me I could do with Fulham statter being on the show, but it feels to me away from home, Adama Traore starts a lot, because that's how Fulham can hurt teams, because they usually have Traore down the right, and then actually Anthony Robinson down the left has been a source of goals this season in terms of grabbing assists. Really, really attacking fullback this season. We don't know whether he's going to play at the moment, but if he doesn't, you'd expect to see similar from Sessegnon, who I just said got on the score sheet last season. Fulham, yes, they've slipped away from Europe. They're bringing on Smith Rowe. They're bringing on Adama Traore. They've got a really good team, Fulham, and that they are dangerous. And I do think that they can hurt Villa in transition.
Yeah, I would agree. I think away from home, and against teams that Fulham supporters might disagree, but are better sides. I would class Villa as a better side than Fulham. They tend to play Sander Berge and Sasa Lukic as the kind of two central midfielders, a bit more defensive minded. And then against teams like Southampton or teams lower down the division, they tend to leave Sander Berge on his own and then play with 2 8s like Pereira and Iwobi. Maybe against Villa, what they might do is go Lukic alongside Berge, and then Iwobi, Jimenez and Traore as the front three, and Iwobi gives them a little bit more kind of off the ball as well. And
Smith Rowe possibly,
but I think he's had a little bit of criticism from Fulham fans, I think, in the second half of the season, Emil Smith Rowe, just for I think he struggled a little bit for form in the second half of the season, so whether he might be used from the bench. And it leaves them an option in transition then if they kind of are able to leave Adama Traore high, and Iwobi can help out the midfield. So I think it will be the two holders in there, and then possibly Smith Rowe, and then Iwobi and Traore.
I mean, AVFC Stato said here, agreeing with what I said, Adama Traore's last 3 starts for Fulham have all been away from home. And what is going on that spreadsheet that he's just managed to find that out so quickly that he just knows that Adama Traore's last 3 starts have been away from home. Incredible work from Dale. Do go and follow AVFC Stato on Instagram and on Twitter, and he's got a YouTube channel as well for watch along. So do go and check out Dale's work, because honestly, I to stand by, it's the best Aston Villa social media account on X, as it's now called. Right then, Dave, as always, we'll finish with our hot/freezing cold take. I mean, you were going out your way earlier to present freezing cold after freezing cold take. Have you got this section?
I've got nothing left. I've spent it all.
Done them all.
Now, should we go Watkins to break the record then?
Watkins to break the record?
Yeah.
It's a fair bet, I would say, that one. Might not be as freezing cold as some of the stuff that you said earlier.
I always go wild to start and then row back, so.
Yeah. What am I going to go with? I'm just going to go wild because we're coming towards the end of the season. Boubacar Kamara's going to score. Just going to go absolutely wild. I'm going to put my Dave Reed hat on, and I'm just going to go absolutely wild. Boubacar Kamara to score on Saturday. Put your life savings on that. Happy. I look forward to 11:15 now with Boubacar Kamara's name amongst the Aston Villa subs. Although I suppose he could still come on and score, couldn't he? So all would not be lost if he was on the bench. I don't think he's ever scored a Premier League goal for Villa, if I'm remembering correctly. He scored in the Carabao Cup. I don't think he's ever scored in the Premier League. No doubt someone, probably AVFC Stato, will correct me if that's wrong. But yeah, I'm gonna go for that. Is there anything else that you would like to cover ahead of this one, Dave?
Don't think so. No, I don't think so.
No. Okay, that's good. I mean, to be fair, I think we've gone a bit longer than we normally do on the preview show. So a whole 28 minutes, so a half an hour show it will be for you today. What an absolute treat! Do go back and check out the rest of the content. We've done a few pieces this week, so wherever you're taking in 1874, go and have a look at what we've done and go back and watch or listen. On YouTube, if you could subscribe with your post notifications on, then that would be absolutely fantastic. Please, we want to get those subscriber numbers up. We want to get the likes up. We want to get everything up, the comments up. Let's just try and raise it towards the end of the season. Let's get everything up. And on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review and leave us a nice little comment as well. And leave a comment on this episode on Spotify and give us 5 stars as well. Thank you to our sponsors, Match Bingo, 1874.io/Match Bingo, and you can get yourself a bingo card ahead of Aston Villa against Fulham, and give yourself a chance at winning between £25 and £250. It's a nice little app. So if you've got a little bit of spare change and you want to play some football related bingo, then do go and do that. We'll be back with a show on I might do something tomorrow. I don't know what it will be, but I might do something tomorrow, and then there'll be the usual post-match show at some point on either Sunday or Monday. But do keep your eye on our socials as well to find out when various shows are taking place. Thank you to those that have joined us live, especially AVFC Stato, who was a great source of information through that show. Maybe we should always do it at 4 p.m. on a Thursday. Have a great rest of your week before you get to Villa Park on Saturday.